WrestleMania has just ended. Epic as always. We're gonna go through night one, night two, and of course, Raw after Mania. Wow. You can see I'm joined by a few people, but we'll get into that in a second. This is Wrestle Extra. Yo. This is a Wrestle Extra. I'm your boy, A Dazzle, the Black Wrestling Advocate. Joined. Wow, this is crazy. Episode 200. Joined, of course, by the man, say his name, he shall appear, the omnipresent one that is the Professor Gerard Bonner. Of course, making his first appearance of 2025 via satellite in Grenada. Mex, the WrestleManiac, if you will. Yeet. And of course, it wouldn't be a major episode if I didn't have a guest, someone I've been trying to get on the show for like the past 20 years, even though I've known her for maybe about 5. Of course, the queen that is Haven Rain. How are you doing, madame? Introduce yourself to us. And what you do and who you are.
Well, I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm Haven. I used to make YouTube videos trying to get back on, but I make reels on Instagram and TikTok videos just talking about wrestling because I think we're all here because we love wrestling.
Of course.
Wait. That was such a chill introduction for someone who I think is one of the dopest influencers and content creators in the entire wrestling space. That is no cap. I am a massive fan of what Haven has been doing, and to be a woman of color having such a strong voice and a strong following. It is epic to have you here for episode 200. So we're not going to let that little small
Wow.
We need the people to understand who is here with us. So Haven, you know I'm a fan, and so I'm excited to finally have you here. We finally are on a space together. So
I know, right?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you so much. That was so dope. I appreciate that.
Of course.
As I mentioned already, of course, we've got Mex. First time he's been with us in 2025. Crazy. Mex, what have you been doing? Where have you been? Why have you abandoned me?
Abandon her.
I left you in the safe hands. You've got the professor with you. So
for real.
Very, very busy start to the year, and I'm still trying to figure out stuff like and you know, family comes first, and that's I missed WrestleMania weekend and going to Vegas because we had to move a family trip to this time. So that's why I'm in Grenada, in Carriacou, the island of Carriacou, off Grenada, which is very nice, very beautiful. Could stay here, but
don't rub it in.
Yeah, we've been having a good time and just keeping up with everything. Even over the last few days, just keep up with everything with the time zones. And we were talking earlier about not getting it spoiled for you and stuff like that. It's been a lot, but it's been a really entertaining weekend of wrestling.
For sure. All right. Let's jump straight in. WrestleMania has happened, of course, the biggest weekend of the year for us as wrestling fans. I'm going to jump in with the question. Which night was better? Night 1 or night 2? And then I'm going to put the pressure on Haven straight away. We don't play nice around here. Go for it.
Me personally, I think night 2 was way better, aside from the ending of the main event.
Whew.
If the night switched main events, night 2 would have been perfect to me.
Gerard?
Had everything.
It's hard to figure out which night overall was better. I will agree. I think the main event from night 1 was carried out better. And I think the problem for the night 2 main event is you have what happened at Mania 40 in the back of your head, which was just filled with all of these cameos, all of this cinema, and the expectation perhaps to have The Rock show up, but Travis Scott, it was like, you know, and I think too, when it comes to a night 2, and we'll probably get into this, night 2 certainly was the more predictable ending. It was just a question of how we were going to get there. But night 1, you really didn't know how this was going to shake out. And so I think to that end, the main event from night 2 certainly felt a bit lackluster. Night 2 had some bangers though. Yeah, I had to. Yeah, I think I got to go with night 2 because that was also the IC title match, the women's tag title match. Matter of fact, we had 2 surprises on night 2. It started with the women's title match. So yeah, I'll go with night 2 as the better of the 2 nights. Though both I think were really good.
Mix.
Yeah, night 2, I think. But both of them had their peaks and troughs both nights. But night 2 and the match for me, the match of the weekend was that women's triple threat that opened up night.
Outrageous,
absolutely.
These 3, yeah. Oh my god, I was blown away. I knew how excellent they were. I wanted Io Sky to retain. They did all of those things. They all looked brilliant. I said, nah. Women's wrestling in WWE is safe. It's future-proof.
Solid, bro.
It's so future-proofed right now. It's amazing.
Yeah. Let's get into some of these matches. Let's go with the one that we just mentioned with the triple threat. Io Sky, Rhea Ripley, Bianca Belair. The big question I'm going to ask within our community of wrestling fans, of course, the black wrestling fans, the fear was the safety of Bianca Belair's winning streak at Mania. She's obviously come into this one, 4-0, never lost, and there was a strong chance this wasn't gonna, she wasn't gonna win. We talked about it a few times on this show, Gerard, where we were saying, maybe it's gonna be Naomi or Jade that's gonna cost Bianca the streak, or she's not gonna be the one that's gonna be pinned, but she was. Gerard, how did that make you feel? Does it make a difference to you that the streak is now gone?
Here's the thing. I think if the streak was gone to the hands of anybody other than Io or Rhea, I think that would have been problematic. Io had to get the pin. And whether it was over Bianca or Rhea is up in the air. It being clean over Bianca, I think really does solidify Io as the world women's champion, which I think is what the bigger story in all of this is. Of course, we want Bianca to remain undefeated. Selfishly, we get that. But I think this was the right move for the business. And there are other things that are happening in there, particularly the incessant booing of Bianca and Bianca kind of leaning into it. Says to me that there's probably more story that's going to happen relative to Bianca. So yeah, if Bianca's going to take the pin and lose her first WrestleMania match, I'm okay that it's to Io Sky.
Haven, you've made mention of this a few times on a couple of your videos in terms of Bianca being booed, it not really making sense, not understanding it. Do you feel as though this is intentional? Do you think this was the WWE's intention for Bianca, or was it kind of just okay, this is happening, let's run with it or mess around with it in some way?
I think it just happened. I don't think it was intentional at all, because if we look at how the build to the match was going, Rhea was clearly playing the heel. She lost fair and square because she was worried about Bianca being ringside, and then she blamed Bianca for her loss, even though she didn't interfere at all. Then she bullied her way into the match. She beat up Io and Bianca week after week, threatened Adam Pearce. She was the heel, in my opinion, but the fans was just nope, we're gonna boo Bianca. I still don't get it.
Yeah, it feels a little reminiscent of real life and the workplace.
Doesn't
well,
it?
Let's not.
There are 2 words I started to use. I'm I don't know if we want to go there this early, but
go for it.
All right, let's rip the Band-Aid off. I love Rhea Ripley. Let's start with that. I love Rhea Ripley. I love Bianca. I love Io. But this was the classic case of white privilege, if there's ever been one. Think about it. You lose the match, you lose the world title, you lose the rematch because you bully and beat up the referee. Then you turn around and bully and you sign your name to a contract that doesn't even have your name on it, right? You bully the GM to forcing his hand to creating a title match. Meanwhile, the black woman has to go and fight in the Royal Rumble, then turn around and beat 5 other women at the Elimination Chamber, all while watching her 2 best friends implode in front of her eyes, right in front of the match. And then she has to sit there and be the better woman and be the referee in the title match and have her things questioned. That's art imitating life. Tell me when I'm telling lies.
No lies told.
Indeed. Mex, you are famous on this show for maybe the last year or so, maybe 2-3 years, talking about the, maybe the lack of character development in terms of Bianca's stories and whatnot for her title reigns and for her time on, especially on the main roster. We've seen some of that kind of change a little bit, especially with the whole thing with Jade and Naomi. Are you satisfied in terms of the type of character development that you always wanted for Bianca?
I think we're getting there. I think we're getting there, and we're kind of getting to a space where even, Bianca's been on the main roster for 5 years, but even she's getting to a space of she's done everything else now. Almost like we saw with Becky this past week and the Baileys and stuff of this world. We've done all of the accolade stuff. So now we need to start telling actual deeper stories. And we're slowly getting there. I think Bianca put out something that I saw on her Instagram about her jacket that she wore at WrestleMania, that she always wanted people to throw roses at her feet. And I said, is that not a heel turn?
Wow.
Like, I understand the sentiment, you want to be acknowledged and stuff like that, but someone to come out with a jacket made completely of roses, because as a child, you told your mother you always want people to throw roses at your feet. That's a heel. That's a heel, bro. Like, she's a bad guy. Like, that's very arrogant and stuff. And this is how I've always said that Bianca's heel turn shouldn't be, just taking someone out of a chair or something. She calls herself the quickest, the fastest, the best, the roughest. Like, her heel turn needs to be from a position of arrogance. Like, I am literally the best person here. There's no one you can put in front of me that's better than me, sort of thing. And people can start turning against her like that naturally. So I think with the Naomi stuff, there is still room for, especially over the next year, where I feel we are 100% in a place where next year, WrestleMania, which should 100% main event, mind you, Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley, that 100% needs to main event, night 1, night 2, whatever you want, but it needs to be there. I think we need to get to a place where Naomi, her words ring true with Bianca. Bianca wins the title eventually, whichever women's title. And it's almost like Naomi's that devil on her shoulder, like, look, sis, I told you could do this without the likes of that Jade woman pulling you down and whatever the case is. And then you've got some real character where she's believing her own hype and all of that kind of stuff. And then they can get to the point of Rhea versus Bianca, and that can be like Rhea's hill that she needs to overcome. We're getting there with Bianca. Well, I don't feel like we're all there yet. Naomi's jumped over her in that respect with what we've seen in recent weeks. But I feel like with Bianca, they need to kind of toe the line maybe a bit more safely, just because of, again, financially a cash cow and what she means to the company in terms of, that kind of ambassador stuff that she does. So maybe it's a long game if we're going to do it with Bianca.
It feels that way. I feel as though, like, this whole thing of her being booed, aside from her being the black female, it's very similar to the whole Charlotte thing where, she's always thrown in the title picture, and, people are maybe starting to get a bit annoyed by all of that stuff. but I think it works out and can work out in terms of, turning her heel slowly. And I think it should work out. Moving away from that, going back to night one, obviously we saw this whole thing with Jade and Naomi play out. The match happened. Jade came out with a win, an amazing match. But Haven, here's my question. Do you think the right person won?
Absolutely not. I think to further the storyline, Naomi should have won, because now Jade has no reason to want to fight her. She got her revenge, So I'm not sure. Maybe the only way I see them continuing, I thought maybe they would throw Bianca in somehow, because since she is leaning heel now. But I don't know. I don't know how we actually really get there. And people are still on Jade's case, saying that they don't think she's ready to be like, that big baby face that would have to go against Bianca as a heel, because you do need a good well-rounded baby face to go against Bianca. She is actually the best at everything.
Max, I saw your face turn. You disagree? Tell us why.
Yeah, it's not like I 100% understand the logic between like Naomi should have won the match and where she has got her character to right now, but Jade needs to get her comeuppance. Like, Jade was put on the shelf for X amount of time. So granted, I don't think this is finished. I think Naomi wins the feud, but I think Jade just had to get her win here, and then the whole proceed with caution thing is going to intensify. Naomi might do something crazy come Friday on SmackDown. But I definitely feel like Jade had to get something just to kind of say, right, she's got her own back on Naomi. Maybe, I don't know, maybe if this was... I don't think it's meant to be the blow-off. That's maybe... If we're looking at it from the point of it being the blow-off, then, yeah, maybe you can then talk about who won. But I think Jade getting the first win in a little series, because I think Naomi's going to come out on top eventually.
Gerard, you've said it many times on here about expecting and wishing Naomi would win that match. Do you feel the same way as Mex in terms of this is like maybe still the start of something to carry on?
That's what's difficult, because I think with Jade winning, it's hard to see it as the start. It feels more like the end, considering how Jade beat her down at Elimination Chamber. Pretty much every time these two have come together, Jade has been like whipping Naomi. Naomi gets the advantage once or twice. So I felt like Naomi really needed the win for this. Now, I think the one point that Max brought up, which could get interesting, is how will Naomi respond to this? Now that we know that Naomi is willing to kind of push the limits, what else can she do? Because here's the problem in all of this. I think I love Naomi in the heel role, but I think Jade has been cast wrong. Jade is not a baby face. I don't care how many times they try to put this on her. Jade as a baby face feels like Sid Vicious when he showed up at WWE. Like, yes, I'm Sid Justice. I'm here for law and order. No, you aren't. You're crazy. Okay. And so I think that's the thing. Jade is not believable as a face. She's not. We've been waiting for her for a solid year to turn. Ever since she showed up, we've been waiting for her to turn. And so to me, when she attacked Naomi initially at the Elimination Chamber, I wasn't sure who was the heel. I thought it was Jade. Jade slammed a door into this woman's head. That's not something that a face does on your immediate comeback. So to me, somehow Jade's got to end up as a heel in all of this, because she's not a believable face at all. How are you a believable face and you're calling yourself that B? Faces don't do that. So this to me is the problem. The other problem is if Bianca goes heel and all three of them are heel, because you cannot convince me that Jade's the face and Naomi and Bianca are the heels. That's not. And then the story itself, Naomi is truly the face in all of this. We've all been there. We've seen what happens when the new shiny toy comes along. who isn't as talented, who isn't as skilled, but because they've got the look and because they're so popular, everybody jumps behind them and jumps around them. And Naomi gets left in the cold. We've been there. So like to act like Naomi isn't justified for what she's doing and how she's feeling and being pushed to the edge is crazy. And again, we've not seen any more interaction between Bianca and Naomi. And I want to see that conversation. But yeah, I think the wrong person won in this case. And I think the good thing is they get to tell more of a story to prove us wrong.
Do you feel as though that Naomi's kind of in this similar position to where people discuss kind of where Drew McIntyre is? So Drew McIntyre will moan and complain about everything, but then at the same time, you're like, actually, you know what? He's right. So obviously, Naomi's been talking about she's been overlooked and all that kind of stuff, and it's true. But how do we go from the obvious thing of her looking and sounding like a character from a horror movie to then Jade turning out to be the heel and her the face? Like, how do we get there? Anyone can chime in on this, but where do we get
in terms of turning Naomi babyface? You mean,
as in this whole thing of Jade not feeling like a true babyface, and she should be the heel? Is that even possible at this point?
I would say they've already, like Gerard said, they've already miscast her. Like, even if we do a quick show of hands amongst ourselves, from the moment she was taken out and lying on that car bonnet, who felt sympathy for Jade?
That part. Nobody did.
No,
it was more of a question of who did it, as opposed to, man, I feel sorry.
I've never, in this whole story, like, Jade has been brilliant in her comeback and everything like that. Look dominant, look strong. I've never felt sympathy for her. I've never felt like, oh, like they really done Jade bad, man. Like I've never felt bad. Like it's just been about what's, how's she gonna get back? How is Naomi gonna come out? Whose side Bianca was really on in all of this? So for me, I feel like we're gonna continue this between the two of them. I feel like Naomi, probably comes out and wins the feud overall to push that character forward. And it might be early doors, but I would say we need to be getting to a place where we're looking at maybe putting the money in the bank on Naomi. Like
that's my vote.
Yeah, to really start kind of putting some accolades behind the character. Again, we don't need to pull the trigger on that for another year after she's won it, but we can see how things pan out. But imagine her in this kind of new character, terrorizing the roster, terrorizing the country with a briefcase in tow, So yeah, I think that's what we need to kind of do, because she is one of the OGs, which hasn't really been treated, as the others have, and finally something she can sink her teeth into. Let's not mess it up from here. I think what happened at Mania is just a literal little bump, to get Jade something in this, and then we'll get back on track. I'm sure of it.
I think we're all in agreement. In terms of Naomi getting some type of push or getting what she deserves. But Haven, do you think that there's a possibility that it could end up being a very similar situation with Naomi, where she is then still overlooked? Because, as Gerard said, Jade is the new shiny toy. So are they going to push? Is there a possibility that they're going to push Jade, and then Naomi will still kind of have to be the one to help her get there, type of thing?
I would like to have faith that they'll utilize Naomi correctly this time, but I don't, because I think she should have won. Like you said, the heel turn, new music, new character. She's been knocking it out the park with her promos, even her online work. You know how they use social media now as well. And for her to not win, it's hard to see how they continue the feud where it makes sense. But now they have to commit. Even though Jade is a natural heel and Naomi's a natural babyface, they have to commit now, especially with, we all say Bianca is probably slowly going to turn heel. So they have to commit to Jade being this big face, but it's so hard to, like you said, it's hard to back her and feel sympathy. I mentioned this in a video for my subscribers. Like, Jade does not sound comfortable as a face. There's no feeling behind what she's saying, because she's so naturally cocky. So I hope Naomi will be seen as this major player, but I don't have faith. but I'm behind her. I'm backing her.
Yeah, for sure. I think we all are, and again, like she's gone so into this new space, this heel turn. You talk about everything that she's done in her promos, the vignettes. She's even. I'm sure she's added moves to her. To her in-ring abilities and all the rest of it as well. And even the social media stuff. Like she even came for me.
She did
in one of my posts.
Did she?
Yeah, I was like,
wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny. I have to show you that later. But yeah, so like she's fully immersed in this whole thing and she's doing that perfectly. But I think the issue really is where Jade's at, and what they're trying to do with Jade, and it just doesn't feel natural. She's done a great job. Don't get me wrong, but it just kind of doesn't feel natural. She's doing a job, but something's missing, or something's been pushed maybe a bit too hard. We've talked about all the ladies that were featured over the weekend, and over the last maybe month, much longer than a month, the big story and talking point has been about the lack of singles male wrestlers on PLEs in WWE. Maybe for the last 2 years, I think it's been now. We also had no Street Profits on the Mania card. Haven rightly shakes her head because I feel the same way. Do you feel as though that was, wrong for WWE to do that after building the SmackDown men's tag team division in the way that they have and successfully? Do you feel as though it's a missed opportunity to have the Street Profits, who massive stars and massively popular in WWE, and then of course that tag team division kind of being overlooked for Mania itself?
Yeah, definitely. I think especially night 2, they had time. It ended much earlier than night 1. They could have had a regular tag match, but they're having a ladder match on SmackDown. That would have been great for night 2 of WrestleMania. So I really don't understand the reasoning for that. And it doesn't help the argument that the black men, are definitely being pushed to the side. The only singles male star they have is Mello, and now he's a tag team guy with The Miz. So I don't understand it. I don't like to play into certain things, but it's really hard to not see where everyone is coming from.
And that's the hard part. It's kind of like it's undeniable. Obviously, it's stats. It's fact. It's in our face. Obviously, we can you can discuss the possible reasons behind it and all that kind of stuff. But the fact remains that we haven't seen a male single star on a PLE for over 2 years now in WWE. You mentioned Mello won the is the one star that we can look at, but he won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Mex, is that a thing? Is that something to get excited about?
This was like the best Andre the Giant Battle Royal I think they've had. That sprint between him and Andrade right at the end to obviously remind us of that 7 series they had was brilliant. I think Mello winning this in his young career, number 1 draft on SmackDown, I think it is fine. It works for him. From a sports presentation point of view, I would have liked to see, especially this year, the person that wins this Battle Royal gets Randy Orton at Mania, because Randy Orton never had an opponent. Just that's a little kind of sports thing. I can appreciate Joe Hendry, big pop, big moment. So they went with that. That's fine. But my take on all of this, like Haven said, like I don't like playing into it and using the card, and saying it's black this or black that or whatever the case is. Yeah. But I will say now, and I'm going to use the F word, wrestling is fake. So as much as we can, bro, let's call a spade a spade. Wrestling is fake. So,
No.
let me cook. So
go ahead, because I'm coming.
No. I say that because I've said that, you know, things go in circles. There's obviously loads of guys down in NXT, black men in NXT, Evolve, that will eventually filter their way through. Maybe we've just come to an end of a cycle right now, and we're rebuilding the next lot. I've said all of this stuff, but at the end of the day, because wrestling is fake, we can write someone into X position immediately. They done it with Jinder Mahal, rightly or wrongly. Jinder Mahal beat Randy Orton and became a world champion overnight. So we can write these people into these positions, and it's not all about this, you know. Yes, you need to deserve it and build up all the credibility and stuff like that. But again, you've got a pen. You can write all of that. So they 100% need to do better. To have this ladder match, this TLC match on Friday, I think it's a slap in the face. It's a complete slap in the face that they're having it. And it wasn't at Mania. It wasn't even at their little SmackDown before Mania. Like, it's so far removed. Like, I just don't understand why they're doing it. And they've got talents there in Melo, which they can do better with. Montez Ford, we've been begging for years now to pull him out of Street Profits, or at least present Street Profits in a way where they are singles wrestlers as well, however you want to do it. We need to do something about this, because again, I don't like to kind of use the card or use the excuse, but it's becoming a bit of a, like, come on, guys, you know, come on.
All right. So let's start here. Wrestling is not fake. Mex has been in Grenada for a little while. I get it, but wrestling is not fake. It is predetermined. And I think that's the word that he wanted to use. And I think in it being predetermined, he wanted to talk about writers and writing, and you can insert people into a role. But here's the thing that you and I both know. You can have an amazing writer. You can have an amazing director, but somebody still has to have the skill to be the actor. And here's the problem. Right now, on the main roster, you don't currently have a black male star outside of Carmelo Hayes who can actually jump in and do all of these things at a main event level. This is the cycle that happens with every... No, listen. It's the cycle that happens in every sport, okay? Yeah. Take any great team. Take the Patriots in the NFL. Take the Bulls in basketball, right? They get a run. They go on a 6, 7, 10-year run. But then what happens is those stars ultimately get injured. They move on. They retire. And then they've got to rebuild. The rebuilding phase takes time. And here's the thing. This argument that we've been having is an argument we've been having for maybe 6 months, 9 months tops. It takes at least a couple of years to create an actual star in the sport of pro wrestling, because in the space of pro wrestling, not only do you need to have the athletic ability, which is incredible, you need to be able to have the charisma. You need to be able to deliver lines in one take. You don't get a second take because all of this is live television. So you're asking one person who gets propelled into a role to be able to do this and to connect immediately. It doesn't happen that way. Now, here's why I'm sitting here saying all of this. Because while we make this same argument, we have 3 black men who main evented Stand and Deliver. Any of them are ready to come up to the main roster. We've been talking about Trick coming. We've been talking about Oba coming. You've got Wes Lee down there. You have so much black talent, male and female, in NXT waiting for a spot to be opened for them to go in and infiltrate. So because we can see it, it's hard to sit back and say they're not creating it. It just now is the point of, okay, when does the slot open up? And timing is everything. Because if you look at the WWE right now, you have more main event level talent who is wildly popular than you've had, I'd argue, since the Attitude Era. You've literally got Cody and Roman and Punk and Seth. That's 4 massive stars on top of several others that I just have, Jey Uso, and like all of these guys who are wildly popular, who people love to see. So now whoever you're asking to show up in that role has to be on their level. We're not just talking about just showing up to say you're there. They have to be at that level. So who ends up being that guy? To me, you can grab Oba. Obviously, he's got the physical tools. You could grab Trick. Trick's got the charisma. He might not be as ready in terms of in-ring, but charisma-wise, he is. I think the challenge that Carmelo Hayes has is size, because the WWE still is relatively the land of the giants. I think part of our problem in the internet wrestling community is we have no patience. So for us, patience is 2 weeks. We mentioned it last week. Why hasn't anything changed? It takes longer than that to do that. And remember, you're not just reaching our audience, you're reaching a global audience. So with that said, if 2 years from now, we're looking and we still have NXT hosed up with all of these incredible black stars, and none of them have made their way over to the main roster, now we've got an argument. But where we are right now with the draft a couple of weeks away, we've got opportunities showing up. So I can't just let that part of things just be said without having a counter argument to it, because I need us to see the other side. Before we, go call Al Sharpton and Jamal Bryant, I need us to understand very, very clearly what's happening here. It's a cycle. It is a cycle. And I guarantee you there's somebody mad about what NXT looks like right now, because NXT's too black. NXT's got too many women, all of these kinds of things. And then they have too many black women, right? It's a cycle. That's coming up to the main roster, folks, on the women's side, on the men's side. So just be patient. Let it cook. Let's see what happens in the next 6 to 12 months. And then we can revisit the conversation.
I would like to play devil's advocate for a second.
Come on.
Go.
So you mentioned there's only really Bello on the main roster, which I do agree, and he is pretty small. But they had Bobby Lashley, and they had Shelton Benjamin, and we can even count MVP. And they didn't even get to interact with the bloodline like that. Like, everyone wanted the bloodline versus the Hurt Business, and we didn't get it. Lashley's a former champion who can talk. He has it in the ring. He has the athleticism. Shelton Benjamin has all of those things as well. We see where they are right now. Like, they are at the top of their game. And MVP can still go. He's not just a manager. So I always think about that. Like, you had a guy in Bobby Lashley that you let go. You could have easily built up Shelton Benjamin. Because when Roman was champion, they built up Claudio Cesaro to seem like he actually had a chance. So it's not hard. You said they have the pin. It's not hard for them to write Shelton Benjamin as a bigger player, And I know we have all the talent in NXT. A lot of the times that doesn't get translated when they move to the main roster. And everyone's argument with Melo is he's the only one that came up between him, Braun, Tiffany, Lyra, that's just kind of doing nothing. These others, they've had title runs. They're interacting with bigger stars. And yes, Melo had the thing with Randy, but now he's with The Miz. And that's not a knock to The Miz, because The Miz is great. But Miz is kind of just there to be a placeholder for people, it seems. So 12 months is a long time to wait for Oba or Trick or Javon, Jakara, Lash, when we could have had the Hurt Business. And even though Melo is small, so was Daniel Bryan.
And Rey Mysterio.
Well, Mysterio for sure.
And I would say to that end, I think there was certainly a missed opportunity with the Hurt Business. I don't think there's any argument with that. I think you could make the argument that there was a missed opportunity with the Pride, with whatever that was supposed to be, right? What I'll say to that end is it's unfortunate that you've got a former world champion in Bobby Lashley, a multi-time Intercontinental and U.S. champion in Shelton Benjamin, who are now your tag team champions over in AEW, right? So what we're arguing about in terms of having black males in the main event as solo stars is also not happening in AEW either. They got one.
At the moment.
They got, well, here's what I'm saying. They got one. They got one, and that is Swerve. And there's always only been one, you know? So even if we had Lashley in the WWE picture, that's two, right? I think we're looking for more than that, which to me is where what NXT is doing is a great harbinger of things to come. Now, we do know, obviously, with the new regime, that the pipeline to go from NXT to Raw and SmackDown looks a lot different than it used to. And we're seeing that translate with a Braun and with Lyra. And there's arguments to be made about if Lyra and Tiffany are being force-fed to us. It's probably another discussion for another day. But I will say that I think it's going to be interesting to see. I will say this. I don't think that Melo has had the greatest run. Not the run that he should have had, not the run that we anticipated. I think we can all agree on that. I think it's interesting to see what they can do for Melo's upcoming run. What will the next year look like? Because it's hard to believe that it was last year that Melo came in as a #1 draft pick. It feels like it was multiple years ago. It was just last year. So if we look at this year, and there's probably a separate show we can do on the year of Carmelo Hayes, right? Win, lose, or draw. The question now is, whoever gets drafted, you can look at the Melo template or you can look at the Braun template. And the question is, which road will they travel? And I think we have more opportunities for guys currently in NXT to travel which of those roads. So it's going to be interesting to see how that looks. But I still think we've got more people coming from NXT that could fill those roles right now than what we currently have on Raw and SmackDown.
It's interesting because everyone's doing this whole thing of comparing Braun Breaker and Carmelo Hayes and where they've come from. And, in NXT, Carmelo was more consistently popular than Braun Breaker. There was a time when kind of people didn't really want to see Braun Breaker, didn't care about him. Carmelo's was forever the whole time that he, from when he got to the top of the mountain. But I think it also shows the massive difference between NXT and the main roster as well. Because for me, Braun's character and style and everything about him fits the main roster way more than Carmelo's does. Yes, a lot more could have been done with Carmelo. Don't disagree with that in the slightest. But it for me, it was always felt easier to push Braun Breaker than it has been to push Carmelo. It's a little bit more believable to push him than to push Carmelo. And as we've said, the whole small thing, it makes a big difference. His size, it makes a massive difference. In terms of things being believable, his push, all that kind of stuff. And we can go down the route of him being like a snidey heel and that helping in some sort of way. But I think it's then wrong to compare those two guys. They are completely different. Agreed. Absolutely completely different. And the main roster, again, is completely different to NXT. So while, Carmelo was the man there, not necessarily easily fit into the main roster. And as you said, Gerard, you've got so many big stars as well. Like you mentioned, Roman Reigns and even, Gunther and all the rest of it. But then, on top of all of that, going to what Mick was saying about just writing someone in and, wrestling is predetermined. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm looking at it like this as well. We did that with Jey Uso. I'm sorry, I've never been, up until maybe a couple of weeks, maybe months ago, I've never been on this whole train of, oh yeah, Jey Uso is a world champion. Not once. Never thought that at all. But
look how long it took.
He now is. Yeah, exactly. But look at where he is now. And for me, he had to win that match. Oh, yeah. It makes sense. I was waiting for him to become a champion. I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm waiting for him to become a champion. Kofi Kingston, very, very similar thing. Never looked at him and thought, oh, he should be a world champion. So I'm saying all that to say it is still possible to write a Carmelo Hayes into that same space. So it's a very difficult thing. There's no easy answer. There's no like, okay, it's going to be this way. It's going to be that way. It is just a case of, it will all take time. I think Gerard's right in that respect. It will all take time. But at the same time as well, it's not a simple, you know, a simple thing in a couple of weeks, you know, we'll get Montez Ford challenging for, you know, the United States title and all that kind of stuff. Another person that we forgot to, you know, mention is Montez Ford. I think Mex kind of chimed in at one point and asked, Montez Ford's ready. Someone tell me Montez Ford is not ready. You know what I mean?
He's ready.
He could go into that space easily, very easily. But again, maybe these the Street Profits holding tag team gold again will help build Montez Ford a little bit in terms of, you know, seeing them on TV all the time and all that kind of stuff. And then we're pushing for a Montez Ford singles run. I'm hoping so.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And again, it will take time.
I have a question and a comment. One question is the issue when it comes to Carmelo his character? As in, is the mainstream wrestling audience ready for an arrogant, cocky black man? That's the question. The comment is, in terms of writing, the reason you don't see this is how many of us are actually in the writing room.
Of course. That's always been a problem.
But the question though is the issue the character of Carmelo Hayes, as in, is the mainstream larger culture ready for this kind of character in their wrestling context?
I think the character is fine. I think with Carmelo, it may just be like, he is so good, we don't need to rush anything with him. Like, for me, over the last 6 months, I've been watching Bron Breakker. Great matches, great moments, the speed moment, the Carlito moment the other week. But I said, who is Bron Breakker?
Right. Good question.
And there was a report that came out not too long ago that Paul Heyman was working with him behind the scenes to help on his character thing. And obviously, from what we saw on Monday Night Raw now, he's aligned with these guys. It's the safety rope, because it's like, yes, right. He's a wrestler. He's a phenomenal wrestler. He's very fun in the ring and does great stuff. But this guy has no character. And it's like, now they've acknowledged that, and now we're going to build him into this faction. Kind of like evolution, maybe with like a Batista role for him, sort of thing, for now, until they can use this as a means to build his character, take him to a world heavyweight champion level. Melo doesn't need that per se. I don't think he needs this kind of rub like from Paul Heyman. The character, the charisma and stuff is all there. And yeah, with Bron, for someone that has had passings with Bron, and I've seen live interviews of people like doing like the junket stuff with Bron. He's not someone that has much. He gives people one-word answers and stuff like that. So yeah, Melo is a lot more talkative, a lot more sure of himself. You know, Melo was out doing this wrestling thing before WWE, before, of course, you know. So I think, if anything, they may just be taken for granted how good he is. We don't need to rush him. You know, we'll give him little trinkets like the Battle Royal here and there. And eventually, I'd like to think they'll get round to doing something with him. If not for nothing, you don't make Melo your number one draft pick just as a thing if you don't see the potential, you know? So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But yeah, in total, like you were saying, this is all cyclical. We see it in all sports. Things go, you know, people have their runs, and then we'll have to start again and rebuild and stuff like that. But to the point, at the same time, we could just always pick up the pen, write someone in, whether they're ready or not. You know, it's kind of sink or swim sort of thing, and see how they get on. Not the right way of doing things. We should probably go on a more organic way, like we've seen with Jey Uso. That literally been a 4 or 5 year journey with Jey Uso. But yeah, I think we just have to wait for these current crops, Javon, Obafemi, Trick. Let them come up, let them have a go at things, and then we can really kind of, you know, pass judgment on it all.
Yeah, for sure. It's a tough one. Hey, but here's a question for you. So we're talking about this whole male singles stars and stuff like that. Something that Gerard said, I think it was, if not last week, the week before on this show, where we're talking about the same kind of subject. And he said, well, people like to pick and choose certain things that they want to be upset about. But instead of looking at the single male stars, look at the greatness that we have in the single females, or just in the females in general, especially the black females. Do you feel that in any way does this whole argument of single black men overshadow the black females? Like, is it kind of like an injustice on them that's what the focus is, instead of the focus being how great the ladies are doing?
No, I don't think so, because people are always praising Bianca and Naomi specifically. I think everyone loves the Naomi heel turn. They've been praising her work as a heel. People are acknowledging Jade's the fact that she's getting better, and she has her character. One thing about Jade, her character work, she knows who she is. I just do think she would be better as a heel, but those three specifically always get acknowledged and people give them their flowers. I just think they also would like their male counterparts to be able to have the same spotlight, which is nothing wrong with that. That was it. That was it. I thought Gerard had something to say.
Oh no, I was waiting for somebody else to say something. I say this. I think again, I have no problem with us wanting everything. Like, I think that's a thing. I do think though that we haven't been screaming loud enough about the successes that we've been having. Case in point, right now, this is so interesting. As we make this argument, right now, both of your tag team champions in the WWE are black. The New Day and the Street Profits. And it's been about 4 years since we've seen that happen. We talk about what's happening with black women. Of course, Jade, Naomi, Bianca. If we move over to NXT, Jada Parker in her first stand and deliver championship match for the NXT women's title, in there with three of the world's finest, and her growth. You talk about the Meta Girls and what they've been doing. We could talk about Kylie Armstrong and Evolve. We could talk about what's happening with LFG. We could talk about Athena and Mercedes. I mean, we're everywhere right now. And so I think one thing we don't do as well is we don't scream appreciation as much as we scream anger. We can run through all sorts of stats about the last time we saw a single male in a PLE role or a major story, but we don't talk about how our women have been doing, our tag teams have been doing, all of these. We didn't scream as loud about Jade versus Naomi being the first singles women's match in WrestleMania history without a stipulation or a title connected to it. We didn't holler about that. Not nearly as loud. Not nearly as loud. Not nearly as loud. We spent a good day on that, right? We've been talking about this for 6 months, So I think we just have not, and I think it's wired in the human DNA. We don't celebrate as much as we criticize. It's just our DNA. We're not talking about the King Bees, and all that they have done as a tag team. We'll get to King Bees and Fire and Flavor this week, right? Like, there's a lot of things that are happening in terms of black wrestling that are worthy of commendation. And I think we find this one point. Everybody I've mentioned, are names that we just aren't talking about, not nearly as loud. And I think that we should probably do more of that.
I just want to say my whole madness happened because I was on mute, but then my computer decided to freeze, so I couldn't unmute. Anyway, we're back. We're back. The usual technical problems on this side of the world.
We couldn't tell, so it was all good.
Apart from me going like this.
Yeah.
I did see you.
Yeah.
Mex, I'm going to come to you. We've missed your booking expertise. Me and Gerard have said for the last 3 weeks that we've been getting so many predictions wrong.
Yeah.
I want to go to NXT. We mentioned the main event between Obafemi, Trick Williams, and Javon Evans. Phenomenal match. our prediction for the last couple of weeks was the strong possibility of Javon Evans coming away as the NXT champion. That didn't happen. Obafemi retains. What do you think happens next for each three of those guys that were in the match?
I think that's the trickiest part to kind of predict. I think Obafemi still goes on and has a strong run. I think Javon probably drops down to maybe what is the rightful place of him maybe winning the North American title. And he can improve the ever strong Black legacy amongst that title. Trick is the one that is more than likely done with NXT. And within a draft or anything like that, you might see him moving up and mingling with whomsoever on the main roster. I don't think there's much else for Trick Williams to do in NXT, really. I think that's what it probably looks like for those guys.
Heaven, you see Trick making that move to the main roster?
Yeah, he has the popularity. He has a crowd behind him. I just, hope he doesn't get lost in the shuffle because there is a lot of talent on the main roster. And then with Miro coming in and someone coming in on Friday, we got Ray Phoenix, Penta. It's been a lot of newcomers. So I just don't want him to get lost. But he has the charisma. He has the crowd behind him. So hopefully he'll be booked, well. A nice steady climb. Doesn't have to start off in like some big thing, but a nice steady climb. He has the size.
True.
He does.
True.
He does.
Do you think it's better for him to go to the main roster, or could there still be a possibility of him staying in NXT? And if he does he? What do they do with him?
I don't know what they would do with him because you have Ricky Saints there now, Ethan Page, like you said, Javon, Oba's still there. There's a few other guys coming up, but the fans complain about his in-ring work. That's the only reason I can see him having a few more months in NXT to just tighten some things up. But as we all know, you don't necessarily need to be great in the ring to be a star, to be a champion.
Right.
So,
Case in point, Jey Uso.
Wow!
And John Cena.
I thought you were going to John Cena, but
Cena. Even that. Let's not even talk about that match. But even that. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about that match real quickly because just before we went live, the reports started to come up about The Rock being on Pat McAfee's show and all that kind of thing. Obviously, coming away from Mania, the big problem was there was no Rock and blah blah blah. Gerard, do you feel as though that was a problem? I know you mentioned it kind of quite early on, but do you feel as though The Rock's involvement in this whole thing has kind of like depleted? Has it made The Rock's whole persona in WWE? Has it messed it up in any way?
I don't know that it messed up his persona. I do think that it has caused that story to be very incomplete because we have a lot of questions, right? Like Rock showed up a few weeks in a row, asking for Cody's soul, right? So you ask for Cody's soul. Instead, you get John Cena, which is massive. You got Travis Scott. That go-home shot from Elimination Chamber is something most of us will never forget. But then we don't hear anything else from The Rock. So we have no idea, why he did this. And here's the thing. He asked Cody to be his champion. So is now Cena The Rock's champion? There are things that need to be tied up in that can help make this make sense. What did The Rock do all of that for? So I think he does need to come back to, from a story perspective, answer those questions, help make it make sense. I don't know that it diminishes him, but it does make us ask what all that was about. We were getting a dark element of the final boss that was really going to be special. I don't know what they do with that now. And again, we have still no explanation in terms of the ties between Rock and Cena. Doesn't make any sense at all. So I think there needs to be something to tie that up and make it make sense.
Apparently, one of the things that one of the things that The Rock said in on the show is that TKO CEO Ari Emanuel's asked him to kind of appear on Elimination Chamber because of slow ticket sales, and that's when this whole trying to get Cody to sell his soul kind of pitch kind of came about. I don't know if it was a few days or a few weeks before or what. Yeah, but it still feels as though, as much as that feels like it was a bit of a last minute type of thing, or not months planned in advance, as a lot of things have been in the WWE lately. I still feel as though there were way too many unanswered questions. There's way too many inconsistencies. And for me, I think it tarnishes John Cena more than it tarnishes The Rock, if that makes sense. Because he's done all of this, and then now we're getting this whole I'm gonna make wrestling the worst thing in the world, and then people are going crazy about this whole thing of the match not being great was purposely done like that, and the finish was done purposely because John Cena said he's gonna ruin wrestling, and that's why the match was bad, and blah blah blah. Mex, what do you say to that? Those people that are saying those things about what Cena said, and then how the match went itself.
I think people are trying to justify what they saw. Like I'm down for the heel turn. I'm down for the last real champion. I love that as a slogan. I think it works brilliantly. I love the fact he threw up his amount of dates, and these amount of dates. I don't even need to wrestle since you guys said I can't do that. Like, I think that's all brilliant stuff. I think John Cena's promo last night was excellent. But yeah, I just feel like in terms of the match quality, we're watching a 40-something-year-old man in the last year of his career. He's retiring for a reason. Like I'm not expecting anything brilliant. If we're getting him versus Randy Orton next month or whatever, Backlash, that could quite easily be one of the worst matches ever. Like between those two guys that are very tired, slow, plodding, and everything like that. So yeah, I'm not looking for that with this John Cena run personally. Like I'm not looking for like great matches and stuff like that. I think people are just trying to justify what they saw. But in regards to what you were saying about The Rock, I think like every time he comes around, loads of intrigue. Like everyone, like you sit up, pay attention. Oh my God, what's he gonna do now? Sort of thing. But if it keeps flip-flopping with creative, I said this after he appeared at the Netflix debut and basically ruined all the stuff with Cody. Like, I'm done. I don't need it. I don't need this because it's not going to help. We need to stop just injecting him to save the product or just for ticket sales and stuff like that.
Right.
Guess what? Write better stories and then you'll get your ticket sales, whatever the case is. Like, or drop the prices of your tickets. your ticket
Yes.
The other. Like, injecting The Rock, I'm tired of it. Like, you can't keep breaking glass in Cage of Emergency and this guy comes out and then just gives us a segment and we're meant to hold on to it for the rest of the year. Then we don't see him. It's too much now. Like, call it a day.
And that's what the fans do. The fans hold on to every little thing The Rock does, and they're creating stories, and there's no payoff because The Rock doesn't show up. And so that's why the fans are saying, oh, the match was supposed to be bad. The Rock sent Travis Scott for it to be bad. And I'm like, I'm not buying that. And I don't think The Rock needs to show up if he can't commit to a storyline to the end, because it gives us hope, and then it leaves a big plot hole and a big story. I would have rather, cheated on his own with no Travis Scott to win. Because to me, and maybe it's just me, I feel like Travis Scott, he ruined the moment both times. When it was Rock, him and Cena beating up Cody, it was ruined for me. And him coming out helping Cena cheat. I'm like, why? He wasn't needed. He looks unsure, uncomfortable, not believable. And he's just there because he's a big name.
Right.
You know what it is? It's like these moments, Elimination Chamber, WrestleMania, these are going to be big moments in wrestling history, right? And Travis Scott, a recording artist, is just there. It's like, whomsoever you're here painting the Mona Lisa, and there was someone like picking booger out of their nose in the corner, and it's like, you see what I mean? It's just like you have no place in this masterpiece.
Yeah.
You have
right.
That's
So,
exactly it.
why do we keep like forcing these people in? Like, I don't know.
I feel as though like this is the one guy in, you know, especially in recent years, in terms of coming from outside of the whole wrestling space, where it just hasn't worked. Logan Paul clearly did. It's still happening now. Bad Bunny was amazing and has been when he's come around. You know, going all the way back, Mike Tyson with the whole, you know, with Shawn Michaels and Stone Cold, absolutely phenomenal. And we've seen it happen before as well. And others that haven't worked, it was a one-time thing. We haven't seen them again. No problem.
Yeah. Right.
Why we're still trying to push this guy, this random guy? And I'm not a big, massive rap fan, so Travis Scott don't mean nothing to me. He doesn't make a difference to me.
Same.
So it's like, what are we doing? But we are where we are, and it is what it is. Very, very conscious of time, but also want to make sure Gerard, the omnipresent man that he is, was all over Vegas during part of WrestleMania week. Bro, just give us a quick rundown of everything you were involved with and what went down.
For sure. So I had the opportunity and privilege to be a part of 2 shows. I'll go second and then first. The second show was Thursday night involving Fighting Evolution Wrestling, Sin City Burn, involving a lot of the stars from All Caribbean Wrestling. And it was a really, really cool show, a packed house. Some of the big notes coming from there is that we now know that Kenny King, the King, will be taking on the villain Marty Scurll in the Bahamas at Baja Bash 2 on June 28th. That came out of what happened that night. Some other great matches took place as well. So it was a really, really strong show. Shout out to the crew from Fighting Evolution Wrestling and All Caribbean Wrestling for a fantastic show. Earlier that day is the show a lot of people are talking about, Ashe Wrestling making its debut in Vegas. I had the amazing privilege of hosting that show, doing several interviews. Kev on Stage, Big Swole, all part of commentary. And Kev on Stage had some great moments during that show, including the main event where he kind of got into it with the Ashe Wrestling men's champion, Darius Carter. And there was a moment, and I think if you guys haven't seen it, kind of how things ended with that show. Darius Lockhart getting the pin for Team Lockhart, but then Darius Carter's trying to come in the ring, and they face off in this immediate moment after the 3 count that was pure cinema. It was incredible. Shout out the legend, the Hall of Famer Jazz was in the house. She and Faye Jackson introduced the brand new Ashe Wrestling Women's Championship, which was super exciting. New tournament that's being created. And the first round of the tournament began there as Jada Stone defeated La Rosa Negra. So many great matches, so many great moments at Ashe Vegas. You can check it out at AsheWrestling.com. Rewatch the entire show. So many content creators from the Black wrestling space were there. It was amazing. I shouldn't name a bunch of names, but I'll name a few. Seahawk from Yahoo Sports was in the house. The whole crew from Black Wrestling Podcast, who I love dearly, they were there. Nick Harrison, a.k.a. Mr. Professor, the other professor, he was there. A lot of great, great people. And so it was an amazing time. Shout out to Darius Lockhart and the entire crew from Ashe Wrestling. And the show ended with a massive announcement. Cedric Alexander is coming to Ashe Wrestling. He will be there for the next show, Return of the King, on June 28th in Charlotte. So it was an amazing, amazing time. And then Friday night, I got to attend Heels Have Eyes from the Fourth Row promotion put together by Westside Gun. And that was an amazing show. I mean, you literally had this mix of TNA, New Japan, AEW, all in the same space. Incredible. And let's see, Enzo, or AKA Real One, was crowned the first ever flyweight champion there for Fourth Rope, winning a 20-man over-the-top rope battle royal, star-studded battle royal that featured Nick Nemeth and a lot of other incredible names in there. We had an appearance from Joe Hendry, which was wild. Let me just say this. It was a moment that you just kind of had to see to believe. Joe Hendry, the Godfather, and the Godfather's ladies. And that's all I can say. The rest I can't really say. It was just, I could not believe the moment I was sitting and I was like, is this really happening in front of me? Like, what is going on? It ended with a cage match involving Zilla Fatu successfully defending the Fourth Rope Championship, but it's what happened after the match. He and his opponent were met by Journey Fatu and Fly Def and several members of a crew that I was looking like, Suddenly Journey Fatu and that whole crew attacked Zilla. They attacked Bishop, who's the other guy. And we then see a figure show up on the screen. It's Booker T. These guys were from Reality of Wrestling, and they were invading Fourth Rope. And it was wild. Now, what people couldn't see was in the crowd is Zilla Fatu's mom. And she is screaming at Journey. And she's like, "You're not getting any chicken tonight," which I thought was the funniest line ever, right?
Wow.
But she was hot. She was angry. And so watching this happen in real time was crazy. It was a wild night there at Fourth Rope. Heels Have Eyes. Shout out to Kaz from The Ringer. David Otunga was a part of that. And then, Ernest the Cat Miller as well. All three of those guys were on commentary for that show. So it was an amazing celebration of Black culture. And this will be the last thing I say. What I learned at Mania Week, two things. One, it's amazing when you can get our content creators and podcasters in the same room showing love to each other. It's a beautiful space. So Haven, I need to see you there next year. And then two,
Will do.
Definitely, because that's your space. You need to be in that room. The second thing is there are all sorts of flavors of pro wrestling. All of these shows that I got to be a part of were packed. People love it. There's not one form of pro wrestling. There's a lot of wrestling that's out there and a lot of things that you can support and enjoy. So a great time out at Vegas. Shout out to everybody who was there.
Amazing stuff, man. Time is definitely going. Guys, I'm going to get you all to kind of like let us know where we can find you and all the rest of it. Mex, I'm going to go to you first. The family man that you are, I know that there's something new with the boys from Wrestlings as well. So don't forget to mention that. So go for it.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure to be back. We've definitely got to sort out what more I can do for this channel. But of course, you guys, stay tuned in. WrestleXtra, 6 p.m. UK time every Tuesday. Myself, WrestleManiac UK on all of your social media platforms. Myself and the boys, Wrestlings, on all your social media platforms. And then you can catch my WWE specific thoughts and stuff on Gorilla Position, WWE GP. Every Wednesday, the podcast is out. So, yeah.
Oh, nice.
So I was going to say, what was the other thing that you do with Anafi, the new?
Dedicated. Dedicated. So yeah, we've I don't know. This is like a real reflective year. We've come to speak about our kids, our experience being parents, married men. Trying to kind of make sense of this journey and stuff like that. And we're just kind of being open and really speaking about that. So yeah, Dedicated Pod on Instagram and TikTok, and of course on all your podcast services as well.
Because life isn't just about wrestling, mate. We have real lives too.
Yeah.
Haven, where can we find you?
You can find me everywhere: TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X. Now on Twitch, I've been hopping into my streaming bag. It's Haven Rain everywhere. HAEVYNREYHNE. So yeah, I'm focusing a lot more on streaming, but I'm always gonna post my reels and TikToks every day. And yeah. Once I get back into YouTube, I will be contacting both of you men at the top for something very specific, but that's for the future.
Awesome.
Okay.
But yeah. And I think I'm an unbiased wrestling fan because I'm not just pro WWE or pro AEW. I'm pro wrestling. I'm pro wrestling. So
yes.
Love that. Gerard, again, as always, apart from just saying your name and you will appear, where else can we find you?
You can find me at Bonafide across all of the social spaces. Again, you can check me out with Ashe Wrestling. You can go back to the website, AsheWrestling.com. Check out all of our work with what we did in Vegas. Again, a sold out show. Incredible. Shout out to everybody who's still talking about the show. You can check me out with All Caribbean Wrestling as well every Saturday for Saturday Night Vibe, our new television show, which is on Tempo Networks across 24 different Caribbean islands, which is amazing. And of course, on the mobile app for All Caribbean Wrestling. And we're now on Triller TV as well. So you can check us out every Saturday night, 6 p.m. Eastern, brand new content on that particular show. Let's see what else is going on. My podcast network, the Bonafide Podcast Network, you can check that out. New episodes of Bonafide Conversations. Another new episode dropped today with 3-time Grammy nominee Anita Wilson. Some great conversation happening this week. And I got a really special guest I'm working on. You'll know about it very soon. Trust me, you guys are all going to love it. So some great things that are happening. Check us out at the Bonafide Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts.
Nice. And to keep it simple, because I live the simple life, you can find me on one place, Instagram, Black Wrestling Alliance, on Instagram. And of course, you can catch me here every single week, Tuesday, 6 o'clock UK time. I think at the moment, 1 o'clock Eastern in the States. And of course, guys, if anytime I decide to pop up, BWA Dazzle on X as well. Guys, this has been our show. We all have to go because we have other lives. And we will see you again whenever we turn up, wherever we are next time.
Yes.
Take care, guys. Thanks for joining us, man.